Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Breaking Down the Ring, and we are getting into a topical discussion today. The most overrated wrestler, maybe of all time. The most underrated wrestler, maybe of all time. Whoever we're talking about. This all stems from a post that I put up that we said we would talk about weeks ago, but then Royal Rumble and all kinds of fun stuff got involved. And
post that you were wrong about?
No.
You're more wrong than I am.
No.
That's pretty bad.
That's pretty fucking wrong.
I'm the king of wrong style, bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Why are we laughing at that? He's not the first time he's ever said that.
That was funny.
It's the first time I said it on air.
No.
Hey, it's the first time I remember hearing it. I laughed.
Me too.
Get over it. What was the most overrated comment on this show?
Okay. I put out a post stating that I feel the most overrated wrestler of all time, gimmick and wrestler, not person behind the scenes, is Undertaker. And
Wrong.
Well, let him frame his argument.
And the reason I say this, and it's this comment stems from all these one has to go things that pop up. Taker's involved, and it's usually something like Austin, HBK, Kurt Angle, Undertaker. And people are like, well, Angle's got to go, or Triple H has got to go. And it's like, but if you lose these people, you lose their entire contribution to wrestling. So I've always looked at it, and every time Taker's on, I'm like, well, Taker can go. That's the easy one for me all the time. Because if you lose Triple H, you lose NXT and how great that's doing. And the evolution of WWE, how it's coming into. I'm not talking about his run in WWE, although he picked up the ball and ran with it really well when Rock was doing movies and Austin was injured and things like that. He had a good run with that. The McMahon-Helmsley era and regime stuff, that stuff was good. But I'm saying that Undertaker is put into a lot of people's Mount Rushmore. Top 4 all time. And I find that bullshit. I'm not saying he sucks. He's definitely top 10. We had a comment. There was a comment that Smitty made. We are off air that night. We were talking about this, and he goes, and he's like, he would be on the dream team. And I was like, yeah, he'd totally be Chris Mullin. 100%. He'd be the Chris Mullin of the dream team because he's there.
I said it'd been a Chris Webber, not a Chris Mullin.
Chris Mullin. He's Chris because he's had no outside of a longevity gimmick. Right? And the streak that could have been handed to anyone. Taker has been basically on air, right place, right time. He has been a transitional.
Ooh, I don't like that statement.
He has been I'm not saying he's done bad. Again.
Go ahead. Make your argument.
But again, it's a transitional champion. He's had only 2 runs longer than 30 days. Okay? He has his storylines aren't really, you don't go back going, oh yeah, I have this, and this for Undertaker storylines. There's the Paul Bearer urn thing with when Kane came in. That was a great storyline.
Yes. That was a horrible.
Shut up.
You are really bad at interrupting today. I'm gonna
pull the noose out of the garbage. God damn.
I'm gonna put my fist to a certain place where the sun
At
don't
least
shine.
you won't be talking.
So Undertaker, I feel, is good. I am not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he's not top 10, but he is definitely not top 4 as far as anything goes in wrestling. If you get rid of him versus any of these other guys, Triple H, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Austin, HBK, Kurt Angle, guys like that. And
I would rate him higher than Kurt Angle, but
Higher than Kurt for sure.
But out of the other guys, I will say, to your argument, before I destroy it, that I agree with he is not a top 5 all time. I think people are overrating him in that sense. If anyone's putting them in their top 5, it's just, again, it's subjective, but they're wrong. Okay, he's not a top 5, but he is on the dream team.
Yeah,
and I don't think you can be like, this guy's overrated when you go, oh, he's still one of the greatest of all time. He still makes the dream team. If you're talking top 10, I think he's definitely a top 10 guy of all time. There's been thousands of pro wrestlers. Top 10's pretty fucking good.
Okay, before Triple H and HBK matches at Mania, does Taker make the dream team, or is Andre
Yes.
Andre better than him then? And I'm talking before the two HBK and
Yes.
Even before then, yes. His career was just there's never going to be another run like his. And to your point about the titles, I don't think that matters. 'Cause I don't think Taker ever needed the belt. You could say he needed the belt that first run when he first got it, when he first beat Hogan.
the 6-day run.
The one
His first belt run was 6 days.
6 days when he lost on Tuesday in Texas.
Tuesday night in Texas.
because that just made him credible as a main event guy. So that one you could say, oh, he needed. At no other point in his career ever did Undertaker need the belt because he was always the Undertaker.
And that's why he was the perfect transition champion.
Yeah, he never needed the belt. He never at any other point in his career, he was already a main event player no matter what. He was never the guy.
His character.
Let's be justifiable to Mikey's point. He was never the guy. There was always Austin, there was always Hogan,
He was more like the mule.
Triple H.
but he was still one of the top dudes for 30 fucking years, and there's never going to be another career like that. And he's also the innovator of all these other matches, the Buried Alive, the Casket,
Hell in a Cell.
Hell in a Cell, Body Bag.
Hold on. You can't. That argument falls to the wayside when we're all talking about how these fucking women are being thrown in first ever matches now, and it's like, oh, you're just being thrown into them because it's the time to put it in because it works with who you are at the moment. And the match is coming up. So these Inferno matches when he's doing it with Taker and when he's doing it with Kane and everything, it's also.
But according to the framing of your argument was that you would lose all that. So we would lose all these matches. We don't know hypothetically if these matches would ever be introduced if it wasn't for the Undertaker.
Mike, can I ask you a question? Do you think you could carry on a storyline with a Buried Alive match or a Casket match without a character like the Undertaker?
If you had
See, that's what I'm saying. So
Because without Undertaker, you don't have characters like Mankind or Kane.
you still get Mankind.
No, you wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't.
No, you would not.
But you could.
He would have still been Cactus Jack.
In
Okay.
fact, without the Undertaker, you may lose Mick Foley even getting signed to the WWE.
Yep. So again, you lose a lot when you say those things. So when you say those points, I'm like, okay, I'm off the board. But I do agree he's not a top 5. If your argument is, oh, Undertaker doesn't belong in top 5, I agree with you.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Overrated.
So he's a 6-man.
So in that sense,
No,
I wouldn't even have him 6, but I say around 10. He's around my 10 mark.
I'll give him 10.
And I think that's still really fucking good. So I'm okay with
Oh
that.
no, and again,
So again, certain framing of your argument I agree with, and then there's certain times where you said some other things. He was in
Which
the
is
right
fine.
place at the right time where I'm like, I don't know about that.
which is fine.
It's really hard to be a dead character.
But isn't that part of the business to a certain degree? Being at the right place at the right time?
Yeah,
They say that for
yeah.
Austin. They say that
Sure,
for Rock. They
but
say
you
it for
can't.
Hart. They
You
say
couldn't
it
be
for
the right
Swat.
place at the right time for 30 fucking years. You have to be pretty fucking talented to make that work for that long.
Well, it doesn't. It helps that he wasn't the guy getting injured until later in his career. Taker had
It's healthy.
a very workhorse mentality about him. When he was wrestling a lot of days, a lot of pay-per-views. He was putting in the most matches, while other guys like Austin were getting hurt. Triple H tearing a quad. Rock going. I'm saying I agree. I'm not. If anyone is listening to this and they think that I'm saying The Undertaker sucks, I do not think he sucks.
But yet you should say he's overrated.
Yeah, because he is not top
But he's
5.
overrated according to the argument that he's framing.
And that's what I'm saying. So many people, including yourself, Smitty, have Undertaker in the top 4 Mount Rushmore. And it's stupid because even Vince McMahon himself, when he was asked by Bubba Ray, who is your Mount Rushmore? Vince goes, and I swear to God, I don't agree with this either, but in Vince's Mount Rushmore, it's Hogan, it is Andre, Cena, and Austin. Even Vince, who loves Taker, didn't put him on his Mount Rushmore. And granted, you can look at the 4 that he gave. It's like, these are the guys that gave him the most money.
Yeah.
I can't even argue. Yeah.
Money.
Yep. Every one of those put WWE on a new level of playing field. But again, even on Vince McMahon's, he wasn't Undertaker.
You put Austin at 4?
I don't know if he.
He just said those are the top 4. I don't think they were
He
in
didn't
a
put it in a
specific
specific order. Yeah, but that was even Vince McMahon's Mount Rushmore doesn't have Undertaker on it, and that's why I say he's the most overrated because when I put that thing out, 75% of the people on that were like, "Yo, yeah, he's definitely up there." No, he's not. And that's why I say he's overrated. Because when 75% of people who are voting in polls on more than one different area of social media are all saying Undertaker is in that upper echelon of people, that's why I say he's one of the most overrated.
I have another point on that. It's like, look at the Monday Night Wars. Who was the one guy that was consistent and kept that company afloat during the Monday Night Wars?
So then Sting deserves to be in your top 4? Because Sting stayed on fucking WCW the whole time. So if you're going to use that argument, there's your rebuttal.
No, but
Sting was more over than the Undertaker that period too.
Fuck yeah. So Sting's better than Undertaker? Or Undertaker's better than Sting?
I put him at the same level, honestly.
All right. Well, anyways, so all right, Z, who's your most overrated?
Awesome. Nice segue.
Mike Awesome?
Fuck you.
No, he did.
No, Mike Awesome. If he didn't die
No,
so
that's not.
early.
Smitty, it was
my
a joke.
most overrated gimmick wise, not necessarily in ring work, but just the whole thing is the Ultimate Warrior.
Okay, explain why.
He lost 4 times on television, and I don't think any of them were clean. Pretty sure none. He never lost clean.
That just means he's sweet, but go ahead.
No, that means you're overrated. My whole art, like, I just
You said about Roman and fucking Goldberg too.
Hold on. Calm down. Smitty, stay on topic. Let him talk.
God damn it. I don't know. I was just never since Joe's not here, I'll take his spot. Like, his gimmick was very cartoonish.
Tickle butt.
Very tickle butt. And he just, I don't know. He had a good match with Hogan and a nice build up to that. But beyond that, like, I just wasn't ever really a fan.
Now, Orlando, who is your most underrated?
Well, I was gonna say I had 2, but
Okay.
one of my most underrated is Ultimate Warrior.
So-
and the reason why is, first off, I don't care if he cuts the most nonsensical promos, talking about snot and space. I don't give a fuck. Okay. As a kid, I thought he was the coolest fucking dude in the world.
And I agree
He's
with
my
that.
very first favorite pro wrestler that I ever had. So the first favorite pro wrestler I ever had was Ultimate Warrior. Not to mention, I think
We not friends.
he had the 2 best matches at 2 Manias in a row. Him and Hogan at WrestleMania 6 was it was a great match. People can talk about Hogan they're all full of shit. That match is fucking phenomenal even today. And then next year, him and Savage, WrestleMania 7. Best match on that Mania.
You can't.
He stole 2 different Manias. Well, the reason why he's underrated is because people talk about what a sloppy wrestler is and all this shit. He, to me, was that era's Roman Reigns, because he's one of the guys that people look back and go, "Oh, he was sloppy. He couldn't wrestle." Bullshit, dude. He might not be a fucking Kurt Hennig. He might not be a Bret Hart, but he was there when he needed to be, and he fucking could tear it up when he wanted. He had 2 fucking Manias that he had the best match on. How many guys can say that?
You can't be underrated if you always go over.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
You can, because the revisionist history is they even made a DVD called The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. Remember? And they had guys sit around burying him, talking about how bad he was of a worker and all this shit. And I sit there and I go, bull fucking shit. I've seen bad workers. That motherfucker put on 2 classics that are going to live forever. That will outlast anything that we're saying or talking about. I think he is underrated, not overrated. And that's my argument, is because people went out of their way to bury him for so many years. Yeah, everyone remembers the happy ending of him coming back. But there was years.
Squash Triple H at WrestleMania.
No.
12.
I meant recently, like when
the
he
day
came
before he died.
Yeah.
right before he died.
For the Hall of Fame.
But people forget that for fucking 10 years there, they went out of their way to bury this motherfucker. So on their TV, that's the only DVD they've released where they went out of their way to bury somebody. So you have all these pro wrestlers, Hogan, everybody, sitting around burying the Warrior. And I go back and
Hogan to bury the Warrior, though?
Well, it wasn't just him. It was a lot of fucking
There was a lot of people.
dudes.
Triple H did it too.
Yeah, just everybody was on there burying him. And I go, he was not that bad of a worker. Listen, he might have been crazy. He might not have been the smartest business guy. He might have held Vince up for money. But that ain't got nothing to do with him being a good pro wrestler. He was an entertaining as fuck character. He could work when he wanted to. And he stole 2 Manias.
Mm-hmm.
Underrated.
How many did Michael steal?
Yeah, Michaels is better for sure. I think Michaels is the best
But no
in-ring
one's saying that
performer ever.
Michaels isn't good.
But I mean, when you think about it realistically, there's only a few guys who even had a Mania stealing match. There's only one a year, and he's had 2 of them, and he's only wrestled on fucking like 4 of them. You know what I mean? So that's pretty fucking good odds.
Smitty, who's your overrated?
Sandman. Both of my entries are both ECW guys. So
Okay, well, so why is Sandman overrated? to you?
Sandman is overrated because like the best thing about anything he did was his entrance.
Yeah.
Couldn't cut a promo, was sloppy in the ring.
He was drunk all the time. There's that.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Where is Sandman normally rated for great wrestling, for great wrestlers.
He's great as one of the ECW greats. Literally,
He's one of the ECW legends.
Originals. He was
Yeah.
one of the ECW originals.
No, I
not
was
one of the greats.
but if I brought up ECW's
I would
top
think-
5 or 10, would you Sandman come in that
Fuck
category?
no.
Nope.
I
In
would
the
say
top
he would.
10?
I
Yes,
would say
he
he
would.
Because top 10, well, okay.
Okay, top 10.
But-
Definitely not top 5.
That's kind of like, there's really, ECW's talent list was Sabu, Benoit, the Dudley Boys, and I'm talking the 2 that made it to WWE.
RVD was Mr.
RVD,
ECW.
yep, RVD.
Taz.
Taz was up there.
You had Bam Bam.
You would have to put
Well,
Shane Douglas in the
the
top
more
10.
you talk about,
But-
the further Sandman drops.
We just
Yeah.
we talk about
'Cause even Chris Jericho came up through that ECW
Yeah,
pipeline.
Mysterio did.
Guerrero
Dreamer.
did too. Dreamer. There's a lot of guys that came up
Raven.
from ECW, but what the guy I thought was most overrated throughout all the ECW guys that you keep bring up a name for that brought ECW to prominence is the Sandman.
See, again, I don't think he brought anything I think he was over with the fans because of his entrance. Similar to how Bobby Roode was pushed as a face when he hit SmackDown, was because of his entrance.
He was over. Yeah.
I don't think he's-
overrated.
I'm
right?
saying he's overrated.
Yeah, I mean, I agree
I
with
get
you.
where you're coming from.
I agree.
all
I
he did
agree
was
with
get
the.
drunk and bleed. So.
Listen, I agree with the argument you're making. I just think it's an easy argument to make. It's like too easy, because it's like, okay, everyone knows that he was never like nobody's out there saying he was Kurt Hennig.
But and that's what I'm saying. Like,
Why is
so
Kurt
if
Hennig my
nobody
benchmark
is
for
trying
good
to
work?
put,
That's
if
the second
nobody,
time I've
he was
used
fan.
that.
He was fan fucking tastic.
but if nobody is
It's
trying to
perfect.
put Sandman at a high level, an upper echelon of wrestling,
Sure.
how can you say he's overrated? Because people don't even rate him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Under the framing of his argument, I agree with what he's saying. But I think, like to your point, Mikey, I just think it's an easy argument to make. But you're not wrong. He's definitely.
Maybe it's on ECW mark.
No, I am too.
truly am.
I am too. But
ECW is amazing, but the only things that I have in my mind about Sandman for anything ECW is his entrance. That's it.
drinking a beer and
Yeah,
smacking
and
himself
smashing
with
the
a
fucking can
kendo
on his
stick.
head.
Yeah.
to be fair, I have a pretty easy pick for overrated too, though.
All right, so who's your overrated?
This is a very easy one. Jeff Jarrett. I never, ever.
That's a good one.
That's
a good one.
I never ever viewed him as a main event player ever. And the fact that he was WCW champion, then he went into Impact and was like their Triple H for a while. and
He
held-
also ran it. So
yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
but he didn't WCW, and they put the strap on him during the end. I
Well,
didn't mind.
when they put the strap on him, I guess he was part of the booking at that point.
Well, I didn't mind. Them pushing Booker T at the time. I thought Booker T. It felt organic. It felt like he belonged there. It felt like Scott Steiner even was a main eventer at the time. Even though it felt like that. It did. But it did not. It never translated to me that Jeff Jarrett was a main eventer. He always, to me, was a mid-card guy that somehow was, and even his in-ring work, which people would talk about in the 90s, like, oh, they wanted to push him because they thought he was really good. I think Jeff Jarrett's good. Like, I think he's good as a worker. But there's nothing special about Jeff Jarrett. There's never a thing that he's ever done. He can call people slap nuts and smack them with the guitar. That was entertaining, I guess.
Right.
But it was never like must-see TV. And I've never seen Jeff Jarrett a match, a promo. And, thank God he got rid of that ugly fucking strapped outfit because that was the worst fucking gear I've ever seen. But I just think he is just the epitome of, to me, is overrated. No way should that guy be a multiple-time WCW champion. No way that guy should be a multiple-time TNA champion. Like, fuck that guy. He's good. He's
not top 10.
No,
I agree with you.
Nowhere. Not top 50, not top
Yeah, I was
100.
gonna say he's not even. Yeah,
How the fuck is that guy a multiple-time world champion when we have guys that like Jake and them who have never held the strap?
A 3-time NWA champion. If you think about it too.
Yeah. Well, what's left of the NWA?
So, my thing about Jeff Jarrett is he was a great booker until he books himself.
Yeah.
And that has always been my argument with Jeff Jarrett. He's a great booker, great worker. When he starts to book himself, that's when shit goes to shit.
JEFFJARRET.
All right, Nick.
Who's
most
your
overrated?
Overrated?
Yeah. Oh wait, I had another one too, but sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's good. Right now, Shinsuke.
Really?
Controversial. Here we
This is
go.
where the controversy is. Welcome to Bring It On the Ring.
You
No,
thought I was controversial with Undertaker.
I will say this. I didn't get a chance to see a whole lot of him in NXT, okay? But as far as his WWE career goes, it's just been lackluster for me. I'm expecting more, and he's a good striker because they always talk about it, but he's a good striker, but I haven't seen that top-notch AJ Styles type match yet. I'm sorry. I have,
that's
then
fair.
you need to go back and watch
that's what I'm
NXT
saying,
and
yeah.
watch the Sami Zayn Nakamura match. That was his first match
Also,
ever in WWE.
I feel like
and it
they're
was-
holding him
was
back.
good.
Also,
You know
go
what I
back
mean?
and watch New Japan. Watch Wrestle Kingdom 10
Yeah.
with him and AJ Styles.
I believe you. Yeah.
Go back and watch just the evolution of Shinsuke Nakamura since 2007.
Yeah.
I am not going to even remotely argue your point because there have been many times that we have said, even ourselves, like when we were even discussing the Royal Rumble, it was like, oh, Shinsuke is the odds-on favorite to win. And I'm like, I don't want to pick him because I don't believe WWE is actually behind him.
Right.
But the way that he's being pushed right now. So yeah, I agree. As far as what you've seen on SmackDown of him, the WWE has dropped the ball tremendously. It's like every
but it's
time
not
they
just
go to
them, because
oh yeah,
let's put some blame on him too, because he's been put in a position to have great matches and he hasn't. With the exception of the Cena match, which I think is probably the best match he's had on the main roster.
Money in the Bank.
He's really been lackluster in his performances.
Again, I can't fully give it to him either because his style of wrestling, and it sucks, and it's really not WWE product. This is why he was so good in NXT, is because his style needs at least 15 minutes every time. It constantly needs a long match for it to build.
But I think on pay-per-views he's been given that.
Even against like Dolph Ziggler, he's given like 10 minutes and stuff like that. It's everyone.
I just think if Miz can go out there and have a match-stealing match with Dolph Ziggler, there's no reason you're telling me Shinsuke, who is supposed to be better than Miz in the ring, can't.
But we look
So to Nick's point, I agree with him, and I like Shinsuke, and I think, but the way what you're talking about on SmackDown, yeah, I agree. And I had my nephew over just the other day, and we were watching Raw, and he was asking me about the Royal Rumble because he had missed it, and I told him Shinsuke won. He's like, "Oh, that sucks," and I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "Oh, he sucks." And like that was just a little kid's perspective of the product because that's how he's presented. He's like, "He sucks."
Now,
But you also look at the Miz. When you brought up the Miz is a product that he knows how the system works. He knows how
That has
to work.
nothing to do with an in-ring match, though.
and I'm going to tell you this right now. The point I was getting at is we have argued that Ziggler's been checked out for a very long time. Ziggler hasn't had the matches he used to have. He still sells for people, but he still doesn't put in the 110% to these matches. And then right after Ziggler, they put him in the program with Baron Corbin, another guy who's green, but good in when he has the right opponent. You know, Shinsuke is not the right opponent for Baron Corbin, and those matches then sucked. You know,
And that's what I'm saying, though. If you're supposed to be this great in-ring worker, you need to be able to pull something out of people. And
like AJ does.
yes,
right.
like AJ does it every fucking time. And if you're going to say Shinsuke is as good as AJ,
I'll never say that.
well, I know, but that's the way he was presented. This guy is amazing. He's all these things. Then he has to live up to it. And I think he eventually will, but he hasn't yet.
He's still trying to learn his chemistry with some of the guys on this WWE roster still to a certain degree.
That's bullshit. That's a bullshit argument, Smitty, and I've told you that before.
All right.
Chemistry ain't got nothing to do with shit, okay? You're either good and you know how to work with people or you don't.
We got a comment, overrated, Lex Luger.
That's a good one, actually.
The Lex Express.
I was looking for it as a kid. I was on the highway looking for that motherfucker.
I actually feel
He slammed Yokozuna. How can I not look for it?
So the thing about the Lex Luger thing is they tried to make Lex the replacement for Hulk Hogan, and none of it was organic, and it just fell flat everywhere, all around. And that's what kind of made Lex overrated.
I think that, and I think Lex was never a great in-ring worker. And the problem is like, as with experience, you're supposed to get better, but somehow he got worse. Because if you look at his earlier matches, like stuff with Flair and stuff, and even in some of his earlier stuff, just in tag matches when he was with the Four Horsemen for a minute and stuff, it's all really good. Like he's really there for everything. But then as it goes on and it gets to the late 90s, it's like Lex is bad. You know what I mean? He throws bad strikes. It's like somehow his work, as he got more on the juice and more ripped, his work just started to get worse and worse.
Right.
And I love Lex, so I was a big Lex Luger mark when I was a kid.
So Nick, who is your underrated wrestler?
Mr. Perfect.
Okay. Why?
Because
And how?
Well, this is why. He had that stint when he was Mr. Perfect and he was heel, and Then there was that time period when he was on what was the name of the show before Monday Night Raw? Primetime Wrestling.
Yep.
The round table discussion type deal, and he was on that. And there was that time when he came back and he wrestled with Randy Savage against Razor Ramon and Ric Flair. So he started to go over big time with the crowd. And then they're booking him in matches like the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam 93. And he lost because of Diesel.
Big Daddy Cool.
I think he was a great in-ring performer, and he was never given his due. I think he was so over in that early 90 period that he should have had a title reign. I really do. I really think he should have had a title reign, and they just kind of let him go by the wayside.
All right, Smitty, underrated.
Shane Douglas. Let's say both my entries
Franchise.
in the franchise. Shane Douglas, even though he got his due at ECW, his due was always done in early ECW where they really had no traction under him, and he was underused in WWE, underused everywhere else besides that early run at ECW. He's the guy that made ECW kind of what it was.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at your comment of I'm reminding myself, it just reminded me of the pro wrestling crate that we opened up, that Z and I, and we the autograph 8x10 was Shane Douglas, and we just fucking ripped him. We're like, this gold vest looking motherfucker.
No, but like Shane Douglas threw the NWA championship to the side and said, fuck this, the ECW, the Eastern Championship Wrestling, but this before it was Extreme Championship Wrestling. He's the guy who pretty much coined ECW to Extreme Championship Wrestling. This is a guy whose impact on the ECW brand was detrimental to what it became.
And he was really good in the ring.
He was really good in the ring,
that.
and he was underused everywhere else he was. You kind of knew who Dean Douglas was, but you didn't care for Dean Douglas. When he was still Shane Douglas in WCW, you didn't know who Shane Douglas was. When he got to ECW and got to do his own thing, he was more appreciated, but it was during a time where Eastern Championship Wrestling was not recognized. And when he did his thing, Shane Douglas made ECW what ECW became.
You know, we gave him shit when we got that 8x10, but I agree. He was always really solid in the ring. The problem was that his character just, for some reason, outside of the bingo halls and the indie type scenes, anytime he went to a larger crowd, because we were any WCW as well. Because we had a conversation, we were talking about Monday Night Raw, the 25th anniversary, and Chris made a point. He was like, if 30 fucking people are annoyed at the fucking Manhattan Center, you're gonna know that the entire it's gonna get the entire crowd. But if 30 fucking people are annoyed at the Barclays, it's not gonna be paid attention to because it's 30 fucking people of all these thousands. There's that small percentage. So when you get the small percentage behind you in the smaller venues and you start getting over like that, if you only have, be it your fault or booking creative's fault, if you only have that same percentage, those same people in the larger crowds, it tends to kind of bury you as well. And he had a gimmick that didn't have mass appeal, but had appeal.
Well, the issue,
it was a shitty cartoon gimmick.
Let's
be honest.
Well, the issue was with Shane is he's probably the first guy to really cut those shoot style promos. Mm-hmm. He's the first guy on TV to do that. But like you're saying, when he goes to the
even before Roddy.
Well, I guess you could say Roddy, but Roddy was still working. You know what I mean? Roddy was still working. Shane would just, cuss, and he would get right to the fucking point.
So
and
he said, fuck the NWA championship.
Not just that. I mean, Shane cut really good promos, but they were shoot-style promos. Yeah. He couldn't talk like he wasn't a character. Mm-hmm. When he tried to be a character, it was cheesy and it was silly. And I think, to your point, when he would go to these larger companies, with the exception of maybe the tag run where it was, him and Steamboat working with Austin and Pillman.
Yeah.
Which were great.
Yes.
With the exception with the exception of that run, I really think he just was always underwhelming in WCW and WWE. Like, he just never really, there was nothing special about him. You know what I mean? He was Jeff Jarrett without the push. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll give you that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, whereas in ECW, he was allowed to be himself and he was allowed to cut these shoot style promos, and so that favored him. If he would have been able to do that on TV, then maybe he would have became more successful.
That was always the great thing about Heyman. Heyman could see where your strengths were.
Yes,
and
and
Heyman
that
could
was
pull
the-
your strengths out and manifest you to this godlike character.
And I love the ECW booking for that reason, because he could take misfits that would not get over in any other place and find a way to get them over.
And that's the reason Rhino's not over right now.
Well,
It's also a different gimmick time.
But
Rhino
anyway-
is no longer the man
anyways,
beast. He's the man boy.
I agree with your choice. I do think he's underrated. That was a good pick.
All right, Z, you're underrated.
The Blue Blazer. He had such a young, promising talent, and it all just came crashing down.
You're an ass.
Welcome to the most inappropriate
But
So he took one fall and that was it.
Tragic. It's really tragic.
he always went under, never went over.
We apologize to the Hart family.
I mean, but what are the odds you fall right into the ring post? Of all the places you can fall. All right, no, but
That was some bad blood.
No.
it's like they showed no mercy. On a
was
serious
capital
note,
punishment on a
though,
real note.
sticking with the same family but different deceased person, the British Bulldog. He never got the title push, the main title push that I think he deserved. I don't even think he got the secondary. He got like the European title and the tag title.
He had an IC title. He had two IC title ones.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, younger. I'm thinking like mid-90s.
Yeah.
But I was always a
He beat Brett
huge
at Wimbledon.
fan. Like, ever since he was introduced, I was always a huge fan back to like when he had fucking dreads or
I
whatever.
was too. Yeah.
He had the look. He had the in-ring talent. He wasn't huge, but he wasn't small either.
What you mean he was juice? That fucker was juice.
Yeah,
He
I
was
thought he was-
definition of juice.
No, but he wasn't like a tall guy. He was like 5. I mean, he was puffy. Don't get me wrong, but he was like 5'9".
You mean big? You mean like tall?
He could fit in with that new generation of wrestling that was coming in with Brett and Shawn and everything. Like, he wasn't. I mean, he was big for his size, for his height, but he wasn't a monster. Like,
Detriment to him was that he couldn't cut a promo. He could never really talk.
yeah, but he had Cornette. I mean, you could have used Cornette and gave him a title run and did
also
it
had
with the whole
Dynamite
Camp
Kid.
Cornette thing and anything like that. I mean, you could throw
that's what I was
really
gonna
anyone
say.
from Camp Cornette in there. Like, Vader should have had a title run.
Yeah.
British
Vader
Bulldog
did
should
have a title run.
Owen should have had a title run.
I think that's a good pick. I would say it's like it's almost hard not to mention Dynamite Kid though. When you say underrated and you talk about British Bulldog,
I agree.
Dynamite.
Was better than
Yes.
than
Oh yeah,
Davey.
Dynamite was an
Way better than
innovator,
Davey.
and Dynamite, to his credit, is kind of responsible for today's modern style in a lot of ways. There's certain guys, whether that they didn't necessarily know it at the time, but the snap to everything, the impact, everything's got that crisp look to it. That's from Dynamite Kid. Before that, if you go back and you watch old wrestling, nothing was as crisp and solid until Dynamite comes around. And that becomes now the style of today's wrestling. Everything has to be crisp. Everything has to look good. And when it doesn't, when it's sloppy or kind of like unorthodox, we're like, oh, that looks weird.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, oh man, Cena can't wrestle because he's unorthodox. That looks funky when he does a suplex. You know, because we're so used to that crisp. Well, that shit started with Dynamite. Dynamite changed the in-ring style of wrestling. And if you go back, you watch his matches with Tiger Mask stuff. That stuff is better than today's stuff. And this is almost 40 years ago now.
Yeah, you're not joking.
So
either.
I just think Dynamite should get a mention there too. But yeah. Sorry. When you mentioned British Bulldog, I'm always like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
a Dynamite
Oh.
mark, so I got to mention Dynamite.
Sean Waltman was another guy I considered too.
Isn't that the whole
Underrated.
point of this discussion?
My underrated is gonna make Smitty so happy, and I honestly feel Roman Reigns is supremely underrated. I think he has got.
Suck a donkey's balls.
let me get that noose out the garbage.
He is, and we've said it many times on this
Put this
show.
around his neck.
We've said this many times on the show. Roman Reigns consistently goes out and has good matches. He doesn't always pull something that we're like, oh my God, that's a 5-star match. But he is, you can't say, oh man, that match sucked with Roman Reigns. You can't, you might not be invested because you're not a Roman Reigns fan, but you can't go back, watch the match fully and go, well, that match was pretty shitty. Look at all these botched spots Roman Reigns did. Sure, Roman's not great on the microphone. I'm not arguing that at all.
He's gotten a little better.
He's gotten better, agreed, over time. But to say that Roman Reigns is not deserving of the spot that he's in is ludicrous because he does. He is consistently yeah, sure, there's the look, and that's why Vince is pushing him. But he does not
It's like
go.
the women. You get pushed because you look.
No, I think guys have better looks than him. They push him for whatever reason, but I do agree with Mikey. I think he performs extremely well, and I'm hard pressed to find. And we've had this discussion on the show where I've said he's had better matches than the other Shield members, like just consistently.
Better than Seth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. We talked about it before. Seth has had one really memorable match, that triple threat at Rumble with Cena and Lesnar. And any other time, Seth's had some decent moments. Like that RKO he took was decent, but the match was shit up until that point. You didn't care until that RKO he took at Mania.
That is correct.
But look what you had Seth work with compared to what you had Roman
Seth has
work
worked with just the same Seth people.
Oh.
Worked with all the fucking top guys because Seth had a long title run. Seth was working with like the likes of Randy Orton and things like
Cena.
Did Roman work with Orton?
Did Roman work with Orton? Or I think Orton's amazing. So
But
if
Roman didn't work with Orton yet.
okay, so then Roman's still having good matches and Seth's not, and he did work with Orton.
So
so
Seth,
again,
okay, I'm asking about SummerSlams. Seth versus Cena versus Roman versus Cena. What was a better match?
Roman versus Cena.
Bullshit.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I don't know. They're probably on par. But,
Bullshit.
I think
outside the finish was what
but
John
Reigns-
Stewart.
Excuse me. Calm down.
Roman Reigns versus John Cena also, in my opinion, is better because there was a much better story behind it as well. So like when I'm saying like, okay, so Gargano and Almas got the first 5-star in almost 7 years
God, it was
from
amazing.
Meltzer, right? For NXT TakeOver, right? We said that Aleister Black and Velveteen Dream deserved a 5-star rating because
He
of
got a
how
4
great that
he got a
match was.
4.25.
And we all said because of the story involved, that's why that match was so good. And we felt Meltzer kind of fucked it because there was a lot more emotion in that match than the other one. So I'm saying that Cena Reigns was better because of the build for that, dude.
Okay,
that build was phenomenal. Same with Dream and Black.
So you don't think the bill for Rollins and Cena with both titles on the line for
No
SummerSlam was
way
not,
is it that
was not great?
Nope. No, that build is nowhere near the build Reigns and Cena had.
Listen, I think Seth is good. I think Seth, I would have argued that he's overrated. Honestly, I could have made a very strong argument for Seth Rollins being overrated.
If I didn't do my
Right.
warrior take to get your warrior take, I would
Right, and if I didn't
Seth
pick
Rollins.
Jarrett because I just felt like he needed to get buried a little. No, but seriously, I could make a strong argument for Seth being very overrated. He can't talk either.
No.
You can't tell me he can cut promos.
He's only got one style of.
I will say this.
one style of like.
I would say when you go to his promos, and that's because I watched Seth on to see was Tyler Black compared to where he was.
I was on
and
shows with him as Tyler Black. I'm telling you, Seth can't talk. I've known him for we started around the same time. I've been on a million shows with him. He's never been a talker. That's not his strong point. He's good in the ring, but he has to have the right opponent. He has to have an opponent that works like today's modern style. Otherwise, you put him in a match with a guy like Sting, and he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Okay, and to me,
wasn't that bad.
yes, it was. And I watched that match cringing because he didn't know how to work with Sting. And this is another sign that I mentioned with Shinsuke. I go, if you're supposed to be this good of an in-ring worker, you better know how to work with everybody. Don't tell me this guy's so fucking good, and then you put him in there with a guy who works a different style, and you don't know what to do. You're still trying to do your same shit, and this guy can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, Roman does a great job of working with people with different styles.
Yes, he does. Roman's always solid.
Yeah.
Where Seth is not always solid. He's very inconsistent. And I'm telling you now, I can make a strong argument for Seth Rollins being overrated.
Dude, Bray Wyatt got his first "This is awesome" chant in years when he faced Roman Reigns on Monday Night Raw.
Well, that's because they Bray had
Because
the advantage.
it was a great match.
Go back and look at that rating. It was a 2.5.
Okay, hold on.
That's not a rant. That's not a rant.
But you're wrong.
When I
Go back. I want you to
listen to me.
look
Stop.
up that.
Shut up.
Look
Shut
up
up.
the rating on that match.
Shut
Hold
up.
on, calm down.
When we just mentioned the ratings for Black and Dream, we said Meltzer was stupid for it. I mentioned the 5-star rating he gave them, and we said he should have done it here as well. So the mentioning of the ratings was to once again mock Dave Meltzer for not, and again, look, dude, it's personal opinion, but we've always said Meltzer falls short more often than not with his ratings. So the fact that you just try to pull a rating out of it,
It
to
wasn't
make
a Meltzer rating, actually.
a 2 point, then who's 2.5?
That was Rolling Stone.
Oh. Even
The
what?
authority on wrestling. No, listen.
Give me that fucking bell, you dumbass. It's not a rant, you dumb fuck.
I got another one.
Well, anyways, I just think Roman Reigns has been more consistent. I think Roman Reigns has better matches than Seth in WWE. It's undoubtable. I don't think you can make an argument that Seth has had better matches than him. He hasn't. He just hasn't, dude. Like, it's just...
Once again, this is wrestling. It's all subjective.
Sure, it's all subjective, but... I mean,
When Smitty's wrong, it goes back to that argument.
No. I'm just about as wrong. I'm just about as wrong. If
Roman
I'm wrong,
Reigns is the modern day Ultimate Warrior. It's been cool to say, oh, this guy can't wrestle or something, but he can.
No, but the difference between Warrior and Roman is Warrior was actually over at one point completely.
I mean, you could make
And
an
so
argument.
is Reigns.
Reigns is over. I mean,
When he pulls like a Ric
Reigns was
Flair.
over, and then they started shoving him down our throats, and he's not over with us. He's still fucking over.
And even so, he's still over. Yeah, because, dude, he's got the Cena treatment. Every match he goes at, you don't hear a single fucking cheer for another wrestler he's with. They don't boo him. They say, let's go, Roman. Roman sucks. He's over either as they hate him or they like him. And they still buy tickets to see him either lose or to see him win. Roman Reigns is, like I said, very underrated because so many people don't give him the credit he deserves.
That's
Including you.
You put Cena in the underrated category.
No, Cena can't be underrated.
Cena
Can't be underrated if you always go over.
Yes, you can.
But,
Yes,
but,
you can,
hold on,
because-
but you
because
disagree
any-
with him about with the Roman argument. It's like, if you won't agree with the Cena argument,
No,
you're full of shit, Z.
No, he just said
I think Cena's underrated, and it brings me to my underrated pick, which is Goldberg.
How am I full of shit? How did I
Goldberg
get
won
involved
all
in
the
that?
time, and yet is still underrated. And the reason why is the same thing. People talk about him being sloppy and fucking all this shit in the ring. He's not, dude. Dude, the dude did things in the ring, and you can't be like, oh, he only had 2 moves. No, he fucking did not. He has fucking 50,000 versions of a press slam, and they are all sweet. He drops dudes into his spear from a press slam.
Fanboy Chris coming out.
He also he's also the fucking first guy I ever seen in wrestling to really apply MMA holds and shit. People forget that. He would just whip into some crazy submission out of fucking nowhere. Listen, I'm not saying he was super crisp because he wasn't, and he could be sloppy at times because he was still really
ended
green.
Bret Hart's career.
That shit happens, dude. I'm
Yeah,
tired.
man.
See, that's another one of those dumb things. Like, that shit fucking happens. Anyways. He did all kinds of fucking really cool shit, and I think he gets... There's never been an athlete I've seen with more intensity in the ring than
But also-
Goldberg. Ever. I don't think he's ever had a lot of really classic matches, unfortunately, because that just wasn't how he was booked. But I still think Goldberg could have been really fucking sweet in the ring. I just think he had so many intangibles that guys... It's one of those things, again, where it's like a Braun Strowman. Like, you're not going to see that guy again. Like, that was a one-time... The way he spears somebody, because it's a legit spear, it's the coolest spear in the world. It looks way better than Roman Reigns. It looks, the only
Well,
other...
Charlotte Spear looks better than Roman Reigns.
Well, I don't give a fuck. I'm just saying, stop, chill out with the Roman Reigns hate. But I'm just saying, Goldberg was a once-in-a-lifetime athlete who did things that today no one can do. That nobody does do, that nobody will be able to do with that intensity, with that type of movement. You just won't see that again. So I think he's extremely underrated in that regard. I don't care that he never had classic matches. He had some good ones. He had some with DDP and Kurt Hennig that I thought were pretty good. But he's never really... I thought those matches with Lesnar he had last year, the one at Mania was good. It was short, but it was good.
the where he took the 6 suplexes, the most bumps he's ever taken.
Yes, and it was a good match.
I'm not arguing it. I agree with you.
Yeah, it was good for what it was. Again, he's not going to be the guy that works like Flair and works an hour, but for what he was, that's a once-in-a-lifetime fucking dude. You're not going to see that again, ever. So, that said, I also have one more overrated for you.
I had the whole Goldberg thing was like, you could have. I looked at Ken Shamrock the same way I looked at Bill Goldberg to a certain degree. When you said first guy you see using MMA locks on somebody, Shamrock did it before Goldberg showed up.
I gotta remember the time frame there, but maybe. But Shamrock was really only using the ankle lock and that one takeover armbar, whereas Goldberg would. I'm thinking of a very specific leg sweep thing that he would do, and he did a lot of. And no offense to Shamrock, even though his gimmick was that he was intense, Goldberg moved more intense, and his movements when he hit people looked like he was really fucking smashing dudes. And Ken Shamrock, who I thought was good for that time period, was never on the same level as Goldberg.
Well, that's part of it because they never booked Shamrock like that.
No, he won the King of the Ring, didn't he? Or did he lose? He lost it to The Rock, right?
Lost to The Rock.
Okay. Either way, like, I mean, he was okay, but he was never going to be that guy. He just didn't have that thing about it.
And like, when I say literally, when I see my mirror comparison to Goldberg and WCW and Monday Night Wars was Ken Shamrock with better booking.
You're out of your mind. Goldberg was as hot as anybody's ever been in wrestling.
Not via his booking.
I don't give a fuck what it's via. Dude, every audience in the world was losing their... These same fans that go today and bury Bill Goldberg are the same fans that were yelling out his fucking name to smash somebody in 98.
Oh, they were converting from WWE to WCW because of him.
Yeah. Like, he was post NWO, the only thing that... post NWO, the last really good thing that WCW did. So... Anyways, super underrated.
But part of that
he was the guy.
But part of that was also because he was the only guy that was a former WWE guy that were building at the time.
Well, that's not true, too. I've always hated that argument, too, because you could talk about DDP, and you could talk about guys that WWE stole that made from WCW. Like, Luger was an NWA WCW guy, then came to WWE. You know, all these guys that they talk came over.
When you brought up DDP, you didn't hear about DDP till after Foley actually
He
won
was the
title.
first person that went over on the NWO after that became a thing.
Yeah. There's a lot of dudes from just WCW. And a lot of guys that made their start in WCW that then get brought in. So I've always hated that argument. That's a different fucking thing for a different day.
I'm asking you a question, though. Give me 5 guys post the turnaround when Foley won the title on Raw.
Post the turn? What time is that? 98, so you got a year and a half left of WCW? Come on. If you want to talk really WCW, I mean, you got all kinds of fucking dudes you can mention. You can mention the Steiners who started in WCW. You can mention Luger, like I already said. You can mention Sting. You can mention DDP. You can mention Goldberg, Vader. How many guys do I have to fucking name before you go, okay, this argument might not actually work out?
I said no. Like, I'm talking about Monday Night Wars. We're talking Monday Night Wars here.
Why? Why is it just Monday Night Wars?
Oh, we're talking in general. Lots of guys come from WCW and went to WWE. Like, Vader actually started off with the Mastodon gimmick, whatever.
Sure, and he was WCW champion.
He's the reason Foley lost the air.
Anyways, okay.
The comment that we got on Twitter, underrated William Regal.
I agree with
Agreed.
I think Regal was, I don't think anyone on this table is going to argue it.
He was solid.
But Regal's one of the guys that kind of killed his own push to a certain degree too.
What do you mean?
I was reading some stuff and watching stuff on Watch Mojo and What Culture Wrestling, and it was talking about how Regal's probably one of the greatest technical wrestlers. But just some of the backstage politics is what he ended up killing his own push those ways.
Well, actually, I remember it was around 07 or something. They brought back the King of the Ring. They brought it back specifically for him to win, and they're supposed to give him like a main event run. And I think he got busted for drugs or something.
I was going to say drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, so
it was alcohol,
which sucked because it would have been nice, especially in that era when they were kind of pushing the old mid-carders into the main.
Yep.
He would have fit right in, and it would have been believable because he is a technical guy. He also had the real fighting background. Plus, he can talk really well. He's a great character. So he could have done more. So, yeah, I would say, he is underrated.
So I made this post in a couple of the wrestling groups that we're in, and I asked who people felt were overrated and underrated. And this one came up quite a bit, and it's going to spark a commentary here.
Can't wait.
And originally I thought this was a troll because the first thing they said was overrated was Ric Flair. And I immediately commented and I was like, Flair overrated, please explain. And the person said, and these are his comments post that, all he could do was talk and cheat, didn't have any wrestling ability whatsoever. Flair could not wrestle. He goes, Flair would slap, shout, woo.
Smitty, is this person related to you?
And get
bullshit, because I actually think Ric Flair's the greatest heel of all time.
And get the figure 4 in. That's all he ever did. I'm not saying he's the worst person to ever grace the squared circle. I'm saying he was well overrated as a wrestler, but for entertainment value, he's in the top 3 for me.
So that's a really weird comment.
How long have you been? No, I'm asking, how long have you been retarded? I'm gonna say it right now.
I've never been retarded.
No, whoever posted that, like, how long you been retarded?
Yeah, that's a really bad statement. And you're saying that came up a lot, which I assume a lot of wrestling fans came in and saw older Flair, which sucks because even me as a fan, when I was watching wrestling in the 90s, I was like, Flair's there. He's whatever. It's Flair.
Early Flair, though.
You know, But when I go back and when I became a pro wrestler, you realize that to the other wrestlers, Flair is God. You know what I mean? Like, he is a Mount Rushmore talent that you could argue should be on a Mount Rushmore. I would put him higher than Undertaker for sure. Another guy with a 30-year run. He was the fucking guy in multiple companies.
About a 40-year run,
Plus,
actually.
Flair could work with anybody. He could make random jabroni A look like a credible threat.
Yeah.
He was a beatable champion, but he had the swagger. He's one of the best talkers in the history of the business. One of the best characters in the history of the business. He could work with anybody. He worked an hour every single fucking night. Some of my favorite matches are Flair matches. And if you don't think they're good matches, I just assume that you hate wrestling. Like, the him and Dusty, the him and Steamboats, the fucking...
Him and Sting.
Him and Sting.
Steamboat. Oh my god!
Right, him
some
and
of
Sting.
those matches.
Was it him and Savage too? At
Savage,
WrestleMania?
Yeah, him and Savage. There's also
WrestleMania 10?
him and
Not
Terry
10,
Funk. It's like the first real hardcore match on a mainstream level. Flair is the fucking man. I don't. If you're saying
before
that,
TV, he used to go to different territories and make the other champions look credible.
yes, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, so if you don't like Flair, you probably just haven't done your history on wrestling. You probably seen Flair, old Flair, and just been like, oh, he's whatever, he's Flair, he's there.
Or you're retarded.
He woos a lot and he chops, But there's a lot more to Flair than that. So
Well, you can get a good understanding of Flair. I mean, I rewatched the 30 for 30 of Ric Flair a couple weeks ago, and I sat down. My girl watched it because I got her into wrestling within the last year or two, and she was like, she knew of Ric Flair, but she didn't really know his legacy in that, and she was blown away. She was like, I had no idea, and that is a perfect testament to Ric Flair. I mean, he's top, definitely Mount Rushmore, definitely.
Someone said underrated Brian Pillman.
okay,
Yeah, I can see that.
okay.
ZY.
Pillman was good in the ring. He was one of the first high flyers to be
Mainstream.
Yeah.
In America, yeah.
Yeah, I was
for
going to
sure.
say, yeah.
He's one of the pioneers of that in America.
And I mean, he was the loose cannon Brian Pillman. Like, there will never, they try, I see it in what they try and do with Dean Ambrose, but no
Dean
one,
Ambrose is the silly version.
yeah, I was going to say, there's no way to exact replicate
PG
Brian
version.
Pillman, and there never will be. I don't know. I totally agree that he is one of the most underrated personalities and workers in the business, or when he was in the business.
It sucks too because when he became loose cannon, it was right around when people remember when he comes to WWE and he got in that bad car wreck and he could barely move his fucking foot.
Yep.
He's still working. But prior to that, the matches he was having like Jushin Liger and stuff, those are very innovative for the time. Like that stuff
absolutely.
was not seen on American wrestling. So he was definitely a pioneer in the ring. Again, very underrated in that regard because people forget that. Then he had the great tag team with Austin. That's another underrated tag team.
Hollywood Blondes.
Hollywood Blondes was great for the time period. And then, of course, the loose cannon character, which was awesome.
His stuff he did with the Heart Foundation before he ended up joining up with him.
Well, that's
that was
right
pretty
after his
good.
car wreck, and he
Yeah.
was.
After the car wreck, he wasn't quite the same, but he's still crazy, and you always believed he was crazy.
Another overrated comment, the 2004 Royal Rumble winner, Vacant. They say Vacant extremely. Chris Benoit, someone said, is very overrated.
They need to go hang out with some weights.
How long have they been retired?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I will say
Benoit was one of. Okay, here's the thing: if Chris Benoit doesn't murder his family, that never happens. He's A, still working today, or B, in the Hall of Fame.
100%.
100%.
100% to that, and I will say as a worker when that happened. First off, Chris Benoit was my biggest influence in wrestling. Was my personal biggest influence.
My favorite wrestler, going hands down.
Yeah, he was my favorite wrestler until he murdered his family. Again,
Right.
I have a hard time even watching his matches now because it's like this dude murdered his family.
Right.
So I don't even go back and watch a lot of his stuff anymore. But I will tell you, prior to him murdering his family, we had a saying at the wrestling school about hard work and about motivation. Like if you're feeling lazy and you don't want to go to the gym, you ask yourself, what would Chris Benoit do? which is ironic now.
I agree. Oh,
But
man.
it's ironic now, but we would say that in terms of like, okay, you know that motherfucker gets up and goes to the gym. Get your ass to the gym.
WWCBD.
So like, I would say outside of The Undertaker, the most respected dude in all of wrestling was Chris Benoit. Which is really crazy that he then kills himself, and you can't say that phrase, what would Chris Benoit do anymore?
Well, he kills
Fuck, you can say that phrase.
You can't. We're all breaking down the goddamn
Yeah, it just means a whole different thing. But it is crazy to see how that's. So I would say probably underrated in many regards. Also, underrated talker. People think that he couldn't talk. Again, he's not The Rock. He's not Austin. He's not like an over-the-top character, but he could talk just fine. Anytime I've ever heard Chris Benoit talk, I thought it was fine. I've never been like, oh, he stumbles over his word. No,
he was very intense at times, but I believed it.
Yeah, exactly.
He was adept. Because, like, honestly, one of the things that still keep me in the wrestling today is the feud between Guerrero and Benoit in ECW. Those were some of the best matches I've seen in my life.
Well, even Benoit and Malenko was good. I mean, that whole little cruiserweight division they had going on was really good.
My favorite match ever is Benoit and Angle at the 03 Rumble. I just think that is the perfect wrestling match. You cannot wrestle a better match than that.
Those two every time.
And one of the things that people don't realize about Benoit is
is
that he didn't call a lot in the back. So what you're seeing is him calling that shit on the fly, which is crazy to me. Like those spots and stuff that he's calling is just, to him that's routine. He just calls that shit with people. Like, again, there's an art form to being able to call it in the ring, and usually it's not as pretty as when Chris Benoit did it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Plus another guy that's super intense. They said it all the time on commentary, but every time he moved, it meant something. But again, hard to watch now because
there's never lost movement in his matches.
Right. Yeah.
Final one for an overrated category. Someone says Chris Jericho.
He's the fucking GOAT.
Hey, suck somebody's asshole, you dumb wad.
Wait a minute.
Underrated or overrated?
Overrated.
Overrated?
Listen, I could make that argument. I could make that argument too. And I'll tell you why. If
you could suck somebody's asshole.
Hold on. Calm down. If Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit don't die, okay, Chris Jericho doesn't get as much love as he gets today. He gets as much love because a lot of the really, really good in-ring workers of that period died. They're not here to compare to. Chris Jericho has had this last run was amazing. Yeah, I thought, we've said it a million times, was a great fucking run. The stuff in Japan he just did was really fucking good. Jericho was really good. Really, really good. And he could talk really well. He's great. But when people start talking about him top 10 and shit, I'm like, no. Okay, so he's my Undertaker. He's the guy that people say and talk about him being top 10 and all.
Right,
he's not there. Jericho's great and has been consistently great and has performed well. I just don't think he's as good as people have made him out to be. His in-ring matches are never as good as Michael's or Benoit's or Guerrero's. His promo skills are good, but they're not as good as The Rock's or Austin. He's that next level right underneath them.
Which
is still really fucking good.
Yeah, like they had said that him and Omega was the best match he's had since him and Jericho.
Okay, WrestleMania 19. I was about to,
wait, since him and who?
I mean, since Jericho
Michaels.
Yeah,
and not WrestleMania 19.
Yeah, like, and that's because I
were allowed to do a lot of the same things in those matches though, because now you can't. In WWE style, you can't. But when you have the freedom in New Japan, you have a better match. I mean,
I will fully agree that Jericho is a lot more entertainment than wrestling substance. He doesn't have bad matches. I'm not saying he has bad matches, but I'm saying it's not the level of difference that it is for The Rock, where it's level of entertainment, mic talk versus what you can do in the ring. Because Jericho still has really, really, really good matches.
Chris Jericho is the master of having moments. Whether he's in the ring wrestling or he's on the mic or whatever, he just naturally knows what to do to draw the most out of the crowd as possible.
Whether it's
and I think that is his biggest strength. As far as being overrated, I mean, I can see where the argument comes from, but to me, I don't feel like you can be in this business and be relevant for 25 years and be overrated.
Smitty.
Well, on Z's point, he does what he has to do to get either the best pop or where he's playing from a heel or a face, for sure. Yes, I think lots of Jericho's notoriety comes from some of the stuff he did with guys like Jericho and Benoit.
Wait. You did the
same thing as Mikey did.
Yeah, same
Jericho with Jericho. What are you guys talking about? Was there an Undertaker match that
Jericho's lots of Jericho's notoriety?
Well, since you brought
Jericho specifically, lots of Jericho's notoriety originally came from the stuff he did with guys like Benoit and Malenko and Mysterio when he was in WCW Cruiserweights. But when he came to WWE, he proved 100% that he knew how to talk, because his debut was a war of words with The Rock.
Yeah, I'm not arguing. I said,
but my issue with Jericho. Okay, go ahead.
He's proved over the years that he's evolved. He's come to his own and done everything he can to be one of the best guys in the industry right now.
Sure, I would say, but prior to this last run, he wasn't one of the best guys. I thought those last couple runs he's had been kind of lackluster. He had matches with AJ at Mania, which was underwhelming. He had a couple matches with AJ, which were all kind of underwhelming. When you think Jericho and AJ, you thought it was going to be better.
But honestly,
and I think those last couple runs prior, those last couple years, he's there. He's still good, but it wasn't anything special until this last run where him and Owens were just on fire.
well, do you feel like the stuff he did with AJ was organic or no?
I don't give a shit if he's going to be that good. I mean, I'm just saying I think he's been a little overrated. Just a little bit. Again, I still think he's my Undertaker. I think he's really good still. I think he does everything well. I don't see when people talk like, oh, he's top 10 or is he was in the GOAT. He's not. He's not. Okay?
I'll put him. Only reason I put him in the GOAT category is at this point in my life, I've watched so much more wrestling and seen what he's done throughout the world.
So have I, and I've never listen. I have DVDs with Jericho in Japan before he was ever even in WCW. Listen, I have all kinds of old random shit from just being a tape collector when I was a fan, and all kinds of weird shit.
Me too.
But I'm telling you, Jericho's stuff, as good as it is, was never as good as the Guerreros and the Benoits
And the Malenkos,
And it was never there in the ring as good as that. It was still good. It just wasn't as good as that.
But my point is like, okay, I agree with you. Like, he's never going to be as good as those guys, but he learned from working with those guys to where now he is that guy.
Can I ask a question, Smitty? If you're agreeing that he's never going to be as good as those guys, how can you argue and say that he's not overrated? Or the argument that I just had where I say he's more entertainment than substance in the ring.
I'm saying he's not overrated because he's one of those guys who's like, well, like people say about Triple H, he's a student of the game. He's become better over the years. And the more I see him, the more I respect him.
All right, Nick, what do you feel about Jericho?
Who? I definitely agree with your guys' point. I don't think he's top 10. He's definitely not top 5. I give him top 20. You know, he's done a lot of different things in a lot of different corners of the world.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Said that already.
But I don't necessarily know. I don't know if he was ever like the face of any one of those companies. Maybe for like a hot second.
Come on, man. Raw was Jericho.
First ever
that debut, that Chris Jericho debut when, you know, he did his promo with The Rock. I mean, I remember sitting there with a couple of my friends and we just shit because at the time there was no internet or anything like that. I had no idea he was coming. I was just like, oh my God, like this is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, you guys have all made some pretty valid points. It's kind of hard to argue that, you know.